Hey, folks. Hey, I'm back again. This is your man, Dolphins AD Moore. We're here on the corner after another Texans lost. And so, I mean, I'd be quite candid with you. No, I did not pick them to win today. I did pick them to be competitive today. Today was Battle Red today. The Texans went down to defeat to the Indianapolis Colts 31-0. And if this was the Houston Blood Bank and was trying to get some pints of blood, to help somebody, they're in dire need right now. This would be an emergency. There was no blood given today. In fact, there was nothing given today. The Texans offense did not show up. Special teams showed up. Defense showed up. Texans did not show up. But before we get ready to chop this thing up and try to figure out what caused the Texans to be so anemic on offense today, this is my pleasure and my honor to bring the dynamic, the effervescence, Kim Davis on of Chalk Talk. In fact, those of us who have been around a while, to see this dynamic. I just keep trying to figure out. I can't buy as many eyeglasses as Kim, so I'm glad she's got money to buy eyeglasses. Every time I look up, that's a total new different pair of eyeglasses. I can afford lenses. I have to keep the same frame because the frame's so expensive. But I'm glad that this young lady, my daughter is envious now because I told her, I say, you know who I got on the show today, and she talking about because she follows you on LinkedIn, and so
Cool.
and so she's going like, no, you can't. Can I get on? No, we're talking sports. We're not talking all this other stuff. So anyway, Kim, welcome to the corner. I'm glad to have you on. But you know what? You and I both know that we was trying to dissect this thing at breaking bread at lunchtime today. I mean, during the Texans in between the game, and you know what? It's nothing really to dissect. They were horrible today. Uh,
Yeah.
They didn't get the notice to get on the bus today. I don't know what happened. Tyrod Taylor, they have already committed 2 turnovers by the 4:25 of the first quarter, and from there it went downhill. I don't even know if they went uphill at all. Your quick assessment, thumbnail assessment.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I know you've invited me before. I'm glad I could make it today. When I go back and I was looking at the final book before I jumped on with you, and this is something that you just don't like. You don't say at this point in the season, right? They're 2-10, so 13 weeks in. You don't usually say that the team's getting worse, but offensively they look worse. They're averaging Today they averaged less than 2.5 yards, not per carry, but per play. They had 141 yards on offense total. Um, that's just really awful. And I don't know. I don't understand how a couple of things. I think we are going to see Davis Mills in at quarterback from here on out. I can't even argue with that because Tyrod hasn't been very good. But I don't understand how you don't change the play caller. And last week when we talked to Tim Kelly on Wednesday, and not Tim Kelly, Coach Cully, and we asked about, play calling and Tim Kelly, and he was emphatic in his support for Tim Kelly. However, he's been that about Tyrod Taylor too. So perhaps it'll be different. I One of the things we talked about, AD, and I maintain this. That change only happens if Nick Caserio and Jack Easterby says it does. For all the smoke that people give David Culley, I think those of us who cover the team and understand these dynamics realize that he doesn't have any autonomy, right? He didn't even get
No,
to pick his staff. So as long as Nick Caserio and Jack Easterby say that Tim Kelly is the play caller, he's the play caller.
well, I find it interesting. A colleague, you and I, that we have been a long time, just happened to walk through during the lunch period, and I just sort of asked him a couple of quick questions, and and he sort of looked at me like, and he just sort of gave me that, and I know, and I'm not gonna call him out now, but as far as the play calling is concerned, there's Cully mentioned something today during the presser, and and if somebody asked him, well, what about the play calling? Well, you just before he had just stated everything is on the table. Everything is on the table for evaluation. But when somebody pinned him on the play calling, oh, nothing wrong with the play calling. It's the effort. I'm sitting there going like,
Well, he didn't say the play calling. He said the game plan. He was
Uh,
asked about the game plan. He said the game plan is fine. I mean, I'm with you, but I just think that it'll be interesting when we talk to him tomorrow and then again on Wednesday about where this team's headed and where they're going. Listen, you and I talked about this. Nick Caserio sits in the coach's booth with headsets on. He has the entire season. I said, I say it all the time. I just find it hard to believe that these decisions are ultimately David Culley's. I don't think they are. But for some reason, when people that know the same things that you and I know, and in some cases probably more, no one ever seems to question anything about Nick Caserio. They just rail on how awful David Culley is. Now, I'm not defending David Culley as a head coach. He does seem overwhelmed, but I don't even think these are his decisions. I just don't. I could be totally wrong, but I'm not convinced.
I don't think you're totally wrong. I think I find it. I'm like you. When you're sitting in the coach's box and folks are making observations and play calling, and you sitting there with the general manager who's on the headsets now, who can
Right.
sit there, and one of the questions, and we all know Tim Kelly is the OC. Okay. Pep Hamilton is the passing game coordinator. And I'm sitting there going like, so how much do y'all interchange? How much is that back and forth? How much is the play calling? And during the course of a game, does he as the passing coordinator? Because when you already down 14, what was it? Well, 7-0 at the first quarter, then 14, and then just gone. The slow moving stones start picking up mass and starts picking up speed. And I'm sitting there trying to go like, okay, y'all can swap quarterbacks out. So what do you have Davis Mills throwing now? And to my recollection, and I could be wrong on this, I only saw a couple of passes that actually went down the middle of the field, or went down inside the hash marks. Everything else was outside of the hash marks. And I'm sitting there trying to figure out, okay, if everybody to sit there and figured out that they would use the sideline would now become two additional defensive backs, because they're not throwing down inside the hash mark. Everything is at the hash marks and toward the sideline. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, does your passing game coordinator, this is what he's coming up with? I don't believe so. So there's a disconnect there. But trying to figure out why do you have a general manager sitting there? I know when when Ozzie was at the Baltimore Ravens, Ozzie would be somewhere in a booth by himself making his own notes for a
Well,
general. For Go ahead, Kim. I'm sorry.
Well, most general managers do. They're usually sitting someplace else. And not only is Nick Casario in the booth, he's dressed with his little coach's outfit on, the little shirt like the coaches have. I mean, he shows up like a coach. And so I just because we know that David Culley did not have the opportunity to put together his own staff. I think he got to pick like two people on this staff, right? This is basically Nick Casario's staff and Jack Easterby's staff. Why would we think that he's got autonomy in terms of play calling and anything else that happens? I don't believe it. And I was listening to a little bit of the post game show when I was coming after I left the game earlier. When I listened to the talk about how you look at the stadium, you're losing your fan base, they're not there. It's more than just this season's bad. You could impact the fan base for years to come. So it's worse than just this year. So the talk about David Culley and just how awful he is. I mean, I'm not here to defend him, but I don't understand why everybody's so sold on Nick Casario. Because people around the league say he's gonna be good. I don't see anything that he's done this offseason, including hiring Culley, that makes me say, "Oh yeah, I'm pretty confident about it." Especially when one of the more recent things they did was to make Jeff Driscoll a tight end. Really? That's what y'all doing in the middle of the season? I'm not sold on Nick Casario. Um, I just don't think this organization, with whatever picks they get, I'm not convinced that they know what to do with him and that they can build the kind of team that can win. So I don't know what the upside is. I don't
Well,
know.
in following in that same thing, when Casario was at the New England Patriots, and for some reason the Texans have always tried to pursue. Remember, there was a tampering charge,
Yeah.
and they backed off of Casario. And I'm sitting there trying to understand. Okay, to understand the New England Patriots, you got to start with Belichick. And Belichick have people in different places and different things that he runs things by. The ultimate person, the last person is Belichick. So the question now becomes, now that Nick Casario is quote unquote that person, what is it that he might have done with New England other than just say, "Oh, I'm part of the New England heritage"? That doesn't make me warm and fuzzy because I still contend that when the New England Patriots were on winning all their games, I still contend. Let's go back and what were the teams that beat the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl? Twice the New York Giants, once the Philadelphia Eagles. I want to go back and find the team. I want to go back and find those personnel. I want to go back and find those people that were able to defeat the New England Patriots in the final game. To me, that's why I want to, because yeah, and I'm gonna say it right now, and I'm gonna continue to say, why the hell is Jerry Reese still sitting in Nashville when nobody's not even want to go come back and say, Jerry, would you like to even, can you come and consult? Can you come do anything? Because as far as I'm concerned, that man beat the New England Patriots twice, not once, and he stopped them from having a perfect season. He was the one that put that team together that he won in the final game. Yeah, players play and people, coaches coach and being able to go to the grocery store and pick the right ingredients. You understand that as being a connoisseur and that come out that bake and have different ingredients. You understand what it takes to have to put ingredients together for the products that you have at your disposal. So the thing about it, being able to get the right people to put in the right mix, that's why I still say to this day, nobody has want to reached out to grab Jerry Reese, because as far as I'm concerned, that's the man that I would like to go and see.
Yeah,
But it
well, and
won't be here.
also you better get your Tom Brady, right? Because we still weren't absolutely sure about that whole Belichick Brady. I mean, you had Tom Brady was a huge piece of that, as we saw how it totally changed the landscape of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and led them to a Super Bowl. I just think that there's a lot this whole thing about trying to be the Patriots. Yeah, Tampa Bay brought in Tom Brady, but they put their own team together. Yeah, they brought in Gronk because Gronk is somebody that Brady feels good about and wanted them around. But are they running the Patriots system down there? Are they trying to be the Patriots? Or are they taking what they needed to do to be successful that worked last year? I just think that this Texans team is a bad organization from top to bottom. I think that Cal McNair has not um, been a good steward of what his father bought and built. And even though the Houston Texans hadn't been to an AFC championship game, I don't imagine that they'd be this poorly run if if Bob McNair was still alive and still in charge. I just don't believe it. I don't think he would have allowed, because this is what Cal McNair did, Bill O'Brien to destroy this team, to decimate the roster, to blow up the salary cap. I just don't believe he would have allowed him to do that. And then the guy who was at his right hand the whole time, Jack Easterby, would have kept him and given him even more power. The whole thing is just ridiculous. It's bad, and I don't know how it gets better. I just don't know.
Well, I think you and I we started doing training camp. It was interesting to see the dynamics between Esterbee and Nick Casario during training camp, because Casario always stayed on the opposite end of the field away from Esterbee. Esterbee would always run around with David Culley on the offensive side. And I would to me, it was sort of amazing to watch the dynamics of Culley and Esterbee on one side, Nick Casario on the other. And my whole thing was, what is Estebee's claim to fame?
Well,
Particularly,
yeah, he was, now remember, he was an intern, which there's no problem starting as an intern. Then he was like the chaplain, and then he became the culture coach. Jack Easterby was basically hired to be the keep Bill O'Brien happy guy. He got in here. He wasn't here very long. Easterby had only been here, what, a short period of time, and they ran off Brian Gaines,
correct?
right? If you just look at what's happened since Easterby has been here, it's been one really interesting turn of events after another. I mean, you saw the trades that were made, the players who were just tossed to the side, and 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 okay, you want to move somebody on, so much so that you'll get nothing um, in return for them, but other than like a peanut butter sandwich. It's not a good business model, whether it's football, whether you're running an energy company, whether you have a communications empire, whatever you're doing, this is a bad way to run a business. And that's what I see. I see it as a bad business operation. And I don't know how it gets turned around. So sure, Davis Mills will probably start the rest of the season. Tyrod has been bad since he came back. He's been bad.
Yeah.
So I can't even argue with you playing Davis Mills, because what else are you going to do? I
Well,
just don't know where the future, how it gets better.
well, one of the questions that I posed to the coach today, they had one successful down the field play that was in down the field inside the hash marks, and then it was called back. It was about, I think it was a 20, almost a 30-yard pass play, and
Yeah,
it got called back because of a formation issue. The receiver didn't, somebody, the tight end that was covered, and the wide receiver should have stepped back. And
right.
I'm sitting there saying to myself, okay, I don't know if Tyrod would have picked up on that and maybe told the receiver to step back. But I'm going like, this is ridiculous. This is stupid. This is in your 12th ball game and y'all still having issues like this. Somebody don't have enough sense to step back and you cover up the tight end and then you destroy a 30-yard completion almost. And I'm going like, and to his credit, David Cutler stands there. Well, it's my responsibility. Blah 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 blah. At a certain point, everybody on Monday, because everybody gets paid in the NFL on Monday, direct deposit. Am I correct? I think that's still the way. I think they still have direct deposit. They don't get checks anymore. Everybody gets a direct deposit. I think at a certain point, somebody got to understand, if you play the X or the Y and you got a guy that goes in motion, somebody's got to step back, because if you cover up the tight end is an ineligible receiver. I mean, at a certain point, somebody should have figured that out. In all these passing schemes, that's the new rage in football right now. But everybody wants to throw the ball, and you can't figure this out. And you can say that the coach didn't do this, but I'm going back to football acumen. Are these guys really that football smart?
Well, I don't know. I think when you're talking about execution, in the 13th week of the season, that's a problem, right? Because what is it that you don't know yet? What is it that you don't know? I mean, these players, most of them are journeymen, right? They've been other places, and not that they were stars where they were, but you know, I just think there's a lot of problems, and when you talk about the culture, which is there's the code word that everybody uses, and not just here, but across sports in general, the culture is not a good culture because they've we've almost become accustomed to this anemic offense, right? And the fact that when Tyrod Taylor was in today, when he's in, he can't seem to find Brandon Cooks. At least when Davis Mills got in, he found him twice, and then he threw the ball. What, there was nobody. I mean, so it's not like I'm saying David Mills is the future. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just this. It's just bad across the board, and I don't know how it gets better. But I will say this: today, the Carolina Panthers fired their offensive coordinator Joe Brady. That's all I'm saying.
So is that an endorsement to bring him here?
No, I'm saying you can make a move. There's no reason that you've got to still have Tim Kelly making calls. I'm not saying
Oh,
you want Joe Brady. I'm just saying that what you're doing here, your offense is getting worse.
getting worse. I mean,
It's getting worse. Your offense is performing worse than it was earlier in the season. It's not getting better.
you know the thing about it, this is the second shutout for the Texans as a football team. They went to Orchard Park and laid an egg 40-0. They got beat today 31-0.
And it's
And
the first time, what, in 2 decades here at home that they've been shut out? Something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. But the thing about it, this performance today was so pathetic and so anemic that I'm going like, I would think I'd rather go back and take that flight to Western New York. I'll go back and rewatch that game again, because at least you were competitive. At least you had an opportunity to make a play, even though there was a great play by Jerry Hughes that would have caught that just the dynamic play by Jerry Hughes kept the Texans from scoring. That might have given them some momentum. That was no play today. That mean, well, the coach did make a great interception on the sideline. That was the first turnover. I'm sorry, that was the first. That was they had the referee replay that gave the coach that interception by Tyrod. I mean, but it's just that. But I tell you what, let's give credit where credit due today. There was one Texans that set a new Texans record today. I mean, albeit a fruitful effort, but Camille Grigor-Hill set a new Texans tackling record today. And at halftime he had 13. He finished the contest with 19 tackles. And if Chris, if you got that cut, I would just, because at least we're grasping at straws trying to figure out, well, what if I would just let's give this young man, let's give him a tip of the hat today, because he basically he played his butt off today, and
Can you explain the zone that you were in today? Because a couple of times you made some nice scrapes for the tackles for losses. What was, like, your film study and everything? What was it about you with certain that zone that you were in to be able to just get to the ball, carrying so much?
I don't know. It's just one of those days. I just felt, like I said, we just put a huge emphasis this week on the run game. So, me, Kirko, the LBs, we had a feel for, where they wanted to run the ball, certain situations, which way they were going. I mean, it didn't look like that because, we gave them so many rushing yards, but, I didn't play a perfect game for sure. I left a lot of plays out there, and there's always room to improve.
Yeah, I mean, he's a sort of like a lunch pail type linebacker. I mean, he stands there and take the heat. I mean, it's one of the few bright spots. In fact, it might be the only bright spot that we had to talk about, because you got his big goose egg up there today. But not sure. Kim, quickly, let's go to the collegiate area. Were you surprised by any games yesterday?
Yeah, and maybe I shouldn't be surprised. I know it's tough to beat a team twice. I was surprised by Georgia and Alabama, and maybe because I was just pulling for Georgia, and it's because Bill O'Brien works for Alabama. But I wanted to see Georgia
Oh,
win that one.
that's some disdain. I mean,
Yeah. But I was surprised at the way, Alabama. I mean, they look really good. They look very much Alabama like. That was interesting, and that Baylor OU game. I don't know if I was surprised by it. I mean, Oklahoma State,
Oklahoma State, yeah.
that game was what a finish that was. So I don't know that I was surprised. I was surprised with the Georgia Alabama outcome, and maybe it was just the score of that game that surprised me. But other than that, there were some really good games yesterday. The Michigan game. They finally got a win. They finally got that win.
What I think what surprised me was the lopsidedness of these are supposed to be conference championships.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of just like lopsided games. I mean, it's like, okay, the Big Ten was like, maybe is this Michigan year? It could very well be Michigan year. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
We're going to find out soon enough. The Alabama, I'm like you. I'm gonna just say I was shocked at the way the dominance of Alabama over Georgia.
I was surprised how I was shocked at how dominant they were, and especially because we know that Bill O'Brien can get kind of caught up in himself when it comes to play calling. He called a good game yesterday, and and of course they got the best quarterback in football, or if not the best, one of the best. He's probably on his way to getting the Heisman, more than likely. But,
I was about to ask you that. Will that perform? Did that performance yesterday cement the Heisman for him?
So I don't know when the Heisman votes go in, because I don't have one.
Right. I don't either. And that's okay.
I think that for some reason they either have gone in, or maybe they go in after the conference championships. I know they go in before the bowls. So I'm not really sure, because the Heisman is coming up. So the votes may be in. Anyway, it was a good performance. It was a great performance. He looked really good. And yeah, there was some lopsided, except for like we talked about the Baylor Oklahoma State game.
Yeah.
That when they went down to the wire. I mean, that was a really it was a fun game to watch.
The Hutchinson kid, the defensive end for Michigan, a lot of folks are giving him props that he probably should be one of the four individuals in New York at the touchdown club when he announced in the Heisman. What are your thoughts on him? I mean, because I've watched Michigan all pretty well. Every time I get a chance to. This kid is from a collegiate standpoint, he is a very dominating defensive end. I don't know how well he'll translate to the next level, and I'm not getting ready to do that to the kid. But
Yeah,
he has
I
been
don't
very
know either. He's been good. He's been really good, and I just, I haven't followed Michigan enough. I mean, I catch him on highlights, and I saw him more this weekend, so I can't really tell you about. I mean, I see him because I watch their highlights. So, maybe he should be one of the four, but um, it'll be interesting because they tend to really go offense so much, right? When they talk about
right.
you know
What about
talk about that award.
folks that don't know, they know you are an Aggie. So what about your Aggies? They wanted to put the blemish on Alabama. I didn't get a chance to check which bowl game they're going to wind up at, but uh, can they keep this thing moving in the right? Can Jimbo Fisher keep this thing moving?
Well, he needs to, because really he hasn't done any better than Kevin Sumlin in terms of his record, in terms of what he's done with his team, and so he does need to keep it moving. Obviously the Alabama was that was a big win, but we'll have to see. He is being compensated like he should be able to keep it moving. We'll say that, but time will tell.
Yeah, speaking of compensation, it's amazing, and I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna let you run. I know I've told you I was gonna only keep you for, but I mean, it's not too often I can bring your dynamics presence here, and I'm gonna okay, keep you for. Kelly got a nice 10-year contract, $95 million. Jimbo Fisher got a 10 years, 75 mil, and now he's got an extension. I'm just trying to understand. Is there a precedent that the highest paid state employee has to be head football coaches, particularly in the South?
Well, it may not be a precedent, but that's what happens, right? They're the highest paid players in the state. Certainly, Jimbo is, and definitely in Louisiana in terms of a state employee, it's Kelly, and before that it was Orgeron. I mean, these football coaches are making a lot of money, and I'm not. Here's the thing: let's stop pretending that these big D1 college athletic programs, these football programs, that they're amateur programs. They are not. It's not an amateur program.
They're
And so
not.
stop acting like they are
Oh,
and start compensating these young people so that whatever happens when these coaches do whatever they want, leave, go, Kelly leaves and sends a text that night that says, "Oh, Shohei, y'all found this out on social media, but we gonna meet in the morning." He meets with them the next morning for 11
11
minutes.
minutes. Yeah.
Right. So,
Hey,
it's not an amateur sport, and start acting accordingly. That's all I'm saying.
well, Kim, I know the Rockets going. Well, I know you probably wouldn't even want to jump over there and see how Silas has got the round ball. I am deeply appreciative. Glad to
Thank
get.
you for having me. It's always, yeah, it's good to talk a little sports with you, a little football. I appreciate it.
Oh well, hey, I thank you for coming on. Go ahead and get the Rockets. See if you can keep them moving. I think they're on a 5-game winning streak
They've
now.
they've won 5 in a row. They have. Yeah.
Well, see if y'all and Chris can get them on the 6th game. And I appreciate it. We'll be in touch as
All
always.
right.
Thank you very much, yeah.
And I
And
will
have a
see
good one.
you.
Uh,
Oh
next
yeah.
week,
So it's Aggies and Wake Forest in the
yeah,
Gator Bowl, New Year's Eve. That's right. And
Aggie,
today, of course, they announced the Texas Bowl is
right.
LSU and
LSU and
Kansas
K
State,
State, yeah, yeah.
January the 4th,
The last bowl game before they get
before the
to.
championship. Yep.
Yeah. So, that's good. K-State. I think we'll see Matt Musil. I think that'll be Matt Musil's. I think Matt Musil went to K-State.
Yeah,
So
he did. He went to
that
K-State.
would Matt Musil will be, he'll be walking around hawking this stuff. And let's face it, I mean, LSU is almost like what, Texas East,
Yeah.
University of Texas East. I guess we can call them that. I know some people get very irritated about saying that. I don't care,
Yeah.
but it's the truth. But anyway, Kim, thank you. I appreciate
All
it.
right. Appreciate
Go,
you. Enjoy. Hey,
you
go
take
Rockets,
care.
right?
Yeah, go Rockets. Go ahead. Chris, as we get ready, Kim, thank you, sweetheart. I appreciate
All
it.
right. I'll
You
see
take
y'all
care.
next time.
All right, you
All
take
right.
care.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye. Chris, Mr. Gardner, what's the score? Rocket, you got a Rocket score yet?
Not really, Mr. Moore. They were winning by a point. I can pull it up real quick. Second quarter. Let's see what the Rockets are doing. Real quickly, the Rockets and the New Orleans Pelicans should be close to halftime. Rockets 47, Pelicans 40. 4 minutes left in the second quarter.
Is the big guy playing?
Big guy, as in who?
The kid down there.
For Christian Wood or for New Orleans? Oh,
New Orleans.
Zion Williamson? Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, he has setback with his foot for at least a week, so he'll be back. Not even sure when, but his foot.
So
he started rehab, started practicing, and the foot had a little irritation, whatever. So they shut it down for another week.
Will he play before the All-Star break?
Time will tell. We don't know. I mean, they hope so, but until his foot is 100%, they're not going to rush him back.
Well, let me ask a quick question because I got a chance to. I mean, he looked like he's picked up a lot of weight in rehab. You know.
Yep.
I'm trying to figure out how are you going to rehab with all that weight on that foot.
That's a concern that a lot of people have. Zion was a big dude at Duke. Was a big dude in high school.
Right. But
he needs to do. I mean, I can't bash him. I don't want to bash him.
No.
He does need to take care of himself better because if he's having foot problems that linger, he needs to lose weight to lighten the load on his feet.
Yeah, I mean, because I think he was at 280 at Duke. I want to say listed. Okay. Now, if you look at him now, he makes Charles Barkley look small.
Right. So he could be around 300 pounds at least. So yeah, and that's too heavy for him to be effective in the NBA, to get back on the court and stay healthy and play on the court. So it's an issue. It's a concern for the Pelicans.
Well, folks, I tell you what, I appreciate it, Chris. I appreciate you. As we get ready to wrap this thing here on the corner. As always, I appreciate you. You know, we into the holiday season, folks. Let me just give some word of caution when particularly your ladies, not only the ladies, you know, go in pairs. Be careful with your packages. Do not leave your packages in the car. Put them in the trunk. Watch yourselves. Be careful of your surroundings. Be careful of the lighter situation. As always, I appreciate you all just stopping by the corner and let's chopping it up. And as we wrap this thing, as always, deuces, ciao, and I'm out of here. And look forward to seeing you next week as the Texans try to hopefully bring not an anemic offense to the stadium. Hopefully they'll bring an offense that can win. So without further ado, this is your man, Adolphus AD Moore, on the corner and AD Max Korner. I'm out of here. Peace. See ya.